Welcome back to the West End Opinion. I'm your host, Julian Gambale, and I am here with a very, very special guest. She's never been in the podcast, but she has been in the room during a podcast. It's my sister, Melanie May. Welcome to the podcast.
Aw, thanks.
How are you today?
I'm great, thanks.
Good,
How are
good.
you?
I'm all right, thanks.
Good.
So today is actually kind of like a different kind of thing because my sister actually came up to me and said, Julian, you need to do a podcast on this topic. And I said, well, that's a great idea. Why don't you lead it? And, I'll just feed off of you. And I think it's a great topic. I think it's really relatable to this kind of generation. And especially to a certain, I guess, kind of culture that we have. And we'll get into it. So why don't you tell us what it is that we're talking about today?
Yeah, so the topic that I came up with and I was kind of curious about is the topic of expectations. Expectations of an individual, expectations of your partner, from your family, especially in our culture where we have very traditional parents.
Right.
For us, we didn't have traditional parents. So I think that's why that came up. It also spiraled off of a few articles that I've been reading since I was 18 and the whole Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith.
Oh, so you watch their
Red Table
If anyone has listened to that or has not listened to it, it's on Facebook, right?
It's on Facebook.
You guys should listen to that Red Table Talk. I don't know if it's a podcast. It's actually like a web show kind of thing.
It is.
But it's kind of like a podcast. But whatever comes out of Will Smith or Jada Smith's mouth, like it's
very raw. It's very honest.
And it's very valuable too. So I mean, they're an interesting dynamic. But the things that they're very unorthodox, but at the same time they make so much sense with what they're like the principles that they live.
Right. Well, that's kind of like what our parents is. Like we're Willow and Jaden, basically, in some shape, way, or form.
I wish I had his hair, but I'm not as crazy.
I didn't whip my hair, but
I don't dress. I don't. You had the hair like that.
Yeah, but
when we went to
Mexico.
Yeah, Mexico.
Okay, that was a one-time thing too. I didn't shave my head either, so. But yeah, that's what the topic is. It's kind of spiraled off of that. I listen to a lot of my friends talk. I see how our friends grow up and who they are now, and a lot of it is what was your expectations, as a child, as a young adult, and now as
right. So why don't we start off by painting the picture? So what's if you want to, like, depending on what direction you want to go, like as a expectation as a child or expectation as in our culture as a Filipino, like paint the picture, whatever it is that you want to start off with, and then we can kind of work that way.
Well, I guess it's your point of view. I'll go from the dictionary's point of view. What is the definition of expectation? And it's basically a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future. So I think just that first line of the definition of it.
Strong belief.
Strong belief, you grow up and who do you believe first? It's your parents.
Right.
So, where do you start off? You start off with your childhood, your upbringing.
Yeah, like you said earlier, we have a different dynamic, but it's still, as well, our parents had still do have an huge influence on us. But I think we have a different kind of direction in how they brought us up and what to believe in.
Right.
As strong of a belief that they had, I know, like, for example, being a Filipino, having Filipino kind of culture, a huge thing that our parents would usually instill would be like religion. Right? Religion, education, work habits and everything like that. But one of the biggest things that they will at least start off with us as kids is at least religion.
We both went to Catholic schools.
Right, and
kindergarten to 12.
Right, and you can see, like, when we were younger, the dynamic when we would be with our grandparents compared to with our parents, because our grandparents would be so heavily on, or even our older uncles, they'd be so, or uncles and aunts, they'd be so,
The older generation.
right, they'd be so heavily, you know, what would God do? You know, Jesus would do this, Jesus would do that, Jesus would not do this or that. What do you think Jesus would, you know, view you for what you've done? Think about that, you know, remember God is watching, everything like that. And there's such a different dynamic that our parents had with us. They, as much as they instilled, you know, God into us, they didn't do it in such a fearful manner.
No.
Right?
We had the option.
Yeah.
And we just knew what was right regardless.
Right. And that's a good point, because this is where we will we kind of branch off, like our upbringing will branch off towards maybe like different from, I would say, like a different Filipino family, where that different direction of the freedom that we had actually gave us the ability, or made us, or again opened our eyes to be more closer to our parents with our life choices.
I think the key word you said there was freedom.
Right.
Where a lot of individuals, it doesn't matter what culture you're in, just as a person, you're searching for freedom.
Right.
So, again, it starts from the beginning in religion and whatnot, and our parents gave us the freedom to understand, to learn about it, and then it was up to us to continue.
I think that was a huge gamble that they did too.
Oh, huge. Especially because they're very traditional.
Right.
You know, dad converted. Not a lot of people know that.
Right.
That's dedication. A lot of couples, you know, in order to do something, they have to convert or be of the same, or choose to leave a religion, right? And yeah, that was a huge gamble, because they taught us as much as they could at home. They sent us to a private school, and then they gave us an option.
Right.
And we chose to continue on. So that word that you said, freedom, I don't think a lot of individuals get that option.
And especially at such a young age.
At a young age,
because
absolutely.
I mean, like, there's many, not just Filipinos, but that's where a lot of rebellious attitude will come into play, where they've been so restricted to life choices or any kind of choices that instead of, you know, their parents giving it to them, they just reach out for it themselves in any other way, and then it comes off as if they're rebelling against their parents, and they're,
and it can backfire. I mean,
yeah, right.
So.
And I mean, let's put it this way, I mean, you kind of had both spectrums of you rebelling as well as you know,
I mean, to everyone out there listening, I waited a certain age to rebel, because again, I got the freedom.
Right.
Julian and I have very, very, very different upbringings. As much as my parents say that, you know, they love us equally, they gave us both the same option. They knew we were two different people. They knew that we needed two different things in life in order to succeed.
Right.
And I am the oldest.
Right.
So that means, you know, a lot of it is trial and error. I'm their firstborn. They were very young when they had me. So a lot of it was, if we can protect her from the world, maybe it'll end up being this later on. You know, another thing is, you're not allergic to a lot of things in the world, right? So you have more freedom in that aspect, where you can eat anywhere you want. You can eat anything you want. You can go to anybody's house, because they didn't have to worry about you, you know, being in the hospital for an allergy. Whereas I had that restriction.
That's right.
So, you know, it's different. So when I turned 21, going into that rebelling stage, I literally waited till I was legal to rebel. And that's not against religion. It's not against my parents. It was the idea that following the norm was not working for me. Following a tradition was not working for me. But even though I did rebel, I surprisingly still went to church every Sunday, whether that was with somebody or by myself.
Right.
I came to family dinners.
Right.
You know, I still talk to you every day. I talk to mom and dad every day. I just wasn't physically under their roof.
Right.
But I had a job. I had 3 jobs. I had a car. I went to school. So I guess my rebelling phase is just leaving the nest, basically.
Right. And that was a big gamble that I kind of see, where our parents put so much freedom to us that,
and trust.
Yeah, that it helped build responsibility for us in a different kind of aspect, where they kind of said, you know, take the freedom because you're going to learn it on the outside world rather than us teaching you and putting a cube in us and saying, this is what's out there, watch out for this, this, and this.
Again, no fear. They didn't.
Yeah,
instill
they
fear
didn't.
in
They
us.
didn't give us. They actually didn't give us a guideline. They actually just said, if this is what you want, then go take it because you're gonna figure it out anyways. Like you're gonna learn it. And you're different from me because for me, being the younger child, I just watched and basically,
learned.
yeah, I had it. It's a weird dynamic being the male and the youngest compared to you because regardless of what age, I think as a female, you're going to be heavily watched over the parents more than the guy. I think that no matter what kind of culture,
there was more restrictions.
That's just what it is, and I see that and I understand that because I think the same thing would be for me. I think I would see that my son would be able to protect themselves more than my daughter, and not just because of the gender aspect. It is the gender aspect, but women seem especially with social media and
their targets,
physical stature, I guess just the fact of it is that in the world females are more targeted to go through that kind of thing, right? And it sucks, but
and that's what I mean was the rebelling phase was
right.
That you got to stay out till 2 a.m.
Right.
I had to be home by 11, and even then I was pushing those boundaries. Right. And that's that thing where it's like, you see the memes and all that out there. The daughter always wants to go out, no problem, or the son wants to go out, no problem. How much money do you need? What car do you want? And then when the girl goes, it's like, no, you're gonna get pregnant. You're gonna get this, and it's like
they always have to go through 21 questions with you. And figure out where, why, who you with, who are the parents.
Text me when you're there. Take a picture when you're with them, so I know that you're with them. When Julian wants to go out, okay, well, have fun.
I saw that. And,
see you later.
Right, but here's the difference. The difference between you and me, and this is 100% true, is you had so many different friends that we don't know who it is.
Yes.
Whereas me, it's like the same 5 to 6 people who have been to the house so often that I would be like, I'm going to this person's house, and you know exactly who they are, where they live. You've met their parents.
Well, that's
we hang
because,
out. Right? When you say I'm hanging out with this friend, you're like, who's this? I'm like, no, literally no one in the house know who this is. Like,
because those friends branched out to another set of friends, and. Yeah. But yeah, again, the expectation was... But see, now continuing on, I did leave.
Right.
My expectation of the world was that it was going to be hard. Because I don't have that protection anymore from mom and dad.
Right.
Right? And that's what the parents are trying to do. And I get that, is that they're trying to protect their child from the worst case scenario in the world.
Of course.
So, that leads into the next thing is you're going into your young adulthood.
Right.
Now, let's rewind temporarily. Before I left the house, I was expected to be the role model for Julian, for you, right? Because I am the oldest, and it's not by 1 or 2 years. Right. There's a 4-year age gap.
4-year gap, yeah.
So, there was this expectation of... whatever you're going to be and do, your brother's going to see the exact same thing. He's going to learn from you. So, again, I waited till a certain age because then you would be legal at that time too.
Yeah.
Right? And it was... My expectation of it was you would understand why I was doing it. But... Again, rewind. I lived with you for 4 years alone.
Right.
So I thought in those 4 years that we lived alone, you had seen it all.
And just for just to add some extra context to that, how old were we when we were living by ourselves?
You were 14 and I was 18 turning 19.
So you're just graduating high school, and I was just going into
into university.
Yeah. So to again add more context, at this time our parents bought a newer home, and by living situations, they couldn't stay with us because they had to attend to our grandparents who were still living at the old house. So they couldn't stay with us because they were under they were bedridden, so they had to stay with him kind of like 24 hours or at least overnight with him. So how the situation was is that, you know, every night we would come home from school and they'd come from work, come to the house all together, but at the end of the night they'd leave at like 9 o'clock and it'd be my sister and myself at home,
Right.
at the new house by ourselves, right? So that's kind of the dynamic how it was, and it was like that for at least
4 years.
4 years. So
4 years, and it was our choice.
yeah,
Again, there's that freedom. There's an expectation that if you live alone in this home,
Right.
you do realize you only have each other.
right,
The expectation, and it was all healthy expectations. It was, you know, there's only two of you. You're responsible for driving him to school. He's responsible for you to make sure, you know, that you also continue to do what you need to do at home in order for you to live together. So we kept each other balanced. The other expectation was it's not easy. Because you're teenagers now. You're not,
Right.
you know, 5 years old and you're a babysitter. You're not a baby anymore. So it was never pressured for us to do it.
right,
I think everyone else needs to know that we had the option. And
Right.
we had a discussion like adults.
right.
And we chose that we can do it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add on to this because the one thing that mom and dad did really well as parents. I mean, they're still our parents and everything like that. But one thing that they did really well was they always asked about our opinions.
Yes.
They factored in how we thought, you know, or what we thought about certain things. So when they're planning to buy a new home, they're planning to move, they asked us, and you know, they always ask us about what we think about their decisions, or regardless of, you know, us saying yes or no, they're going to do it anyways, but at least they warn us. That was something that they always did. And yeah, like they didn't treat us like kids anymore. They did, you know, we'll get into this later in the discussion, but one thing when we were getting older is when we hit that age of young adulthood to adulthood, they treated us like young adults and adults, right? And they respected our age, they respected our mentalities, they respected our voice, and I think that was really helpful.
It's a big contribution to how we were so confident in doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I had something else to say, but continue. You kept going. There's something else you kept saying. I don't know if you remember it.
I don't even remember.
Okay.
The expectation was there was one question I remember Mom asking before we officially moved into the house alone. Was do you feel like I'm forcing you to do this? Do you think I expect you to do this? You know, as a sister. And my answer was no. It was my own self-expectation. Because it's a big challenge to be 4 years apart for some individuals, being a boy and a girl, knowing already early on there are certain freedoms to our situation.
Right.
You get to stay out X amount of hours and I can't. But my answer was no, because I had an expectation for myself that I can do it. And it's not just to make myself feel good. It was to know that my sibling, you, trusted me too.
Right.
Right? It was part of this thing in my head that we were going to develop this type of friendship that wasn't just childhood friendship anymore. My expectation was if we can do this now at this age, imagine how we're going to be, knock on wood, you know, when mom and dad are gone.
Right.
Because we had developed something
Right.
At such a young age.
Yes.
And we're taking it on with us when we expand our, like, you know, our own little families, and then it goes from there, right? They're gonna see that.
Right.
And that's my expectation in my head. That's what I wanted out of the 4 years together. Right? So that's why mom asked, you know, do you feel like I'm making you do this? And the answer was no. Because I knew that we could do it. And we did hit the expectation that I hadn't envisioned in my head.
Right.
Right?
You think it still would have been the same if we never bought the house?
Because
I mean, a lot of the things are circumstantial, right? Like
I think if we stayed in the old house, you know, with mom and dad, I don't think we would be as close. Just because of even our extracurricular activities now, our group of friends right now.
Right.
Because you were 14, I took you everywhere.
Yeah, you're
Everywhere. You were at every single friend's party. You were friends with my friends. I was the only one with a car, so if I had to go pick up somebody, you were with me. You knew everybody I was hanging out with at that time, right?
Yeah.
And I knew whoever you were hanging out with because
Right.
I had to be their drivers too.
Right.
It would have been different, I think, if we stayed, but everything happens for a reason.
Yeah,
so.
that's what I was gonna get at because as great as our parents brought us up, we were under like really different living scenarios, right? We throughout my whole life, we like mom and dad weren't 100%. At least mom wasn't 100% just taking care of us, right? There was
She
also
split her time.
right. So
Yeah.
if she was not at work, she was at school. Or if she wasn't at school, she was with us. But for some time, she also had to watch over her mom and dad, right? Because mom and dad also lived with. We all lived in under one house, right? And like I said earlier, they're bedridden, so mom and dad also had to take care of them. So we were kind of under like weird, like again, weird living situations.
Not everyone gets to experience,
right?
Especially at a young age. You're underage. I became like a indirect legal guardian, basically.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I mean, I just turned 18 at that point, turning 19. So.
Right, so like I said, like we were put under a situation to kind of grow up a little bit faster. And I think to this day, I can kind of see the mentality change or the mentality difference with us compared to others. And our priorities are different, and I think I've spoken about this in a different podcast about priorities being different. Now, that's nothing to say that my priorities are the right priorities and my mentality is the right mentality, but my mindset's at a different place than other people that I hang out with my age, right? And I think a lot of it had to do with what it was and what was expected of us at an earlier age.
Was it everything you thought it would be?
No.
That was my question.
No.
Like, at that age.
Like, what do you mean, though?
Like, I guess for some, I don't want to say kids, young teenagers, just going into their teens like what you were,
right.
14, 13, 14.
Right.
Did you expect it to be easy? Like, or like it's even more freedom because mom and dad aren't there?
It is. It's a little different because it was nice. It was it was never what I expected.
Okay.
Because it wasn't what it wasn't. Because I can say it wasn't based on me looking back. Like, what I'm trying to get at is I would kind of compare it to everybody else. Like I said, mom and dad, as you know, they gave us a lot of attention. They made sure we were a priority. But of course, then there was still that other priority of them looking over, like Lolo and Lola, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if I were to look at other kids, their parents would 100%
always be there.
That their attention is them, right? Living expectations where all
Just
the
the
friends
two of
got
us.
certain things and we couldn't based on our scenarios. I didn't expect it. At the same time, kind of it's hard for me to like say whether or not it's everything I expected because I didn't know what to expect. From what I knew off the bat, it was always different. It was always different with us compared to everybody else. Surprisingly, I think it was. I was put in the perfect situation though. I'm very close to mom and dad. I'm not saying you're not, but you are just as well. But we as children to our parents, we're very close to our parents.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. They're our best friends.
They're basically our best friends. I mean, we want to go on trips with them. We want them to be around. We
still ask mom to go shopping with us.
Yeah.
And golfing.
Exactly, right? So I want to know my parents' opinion. I go to my parents a lot to ask them about what they think about certain decisions I make and everything like that. That's something I don't see a lot with our generation. I think there's a huge thirst to have their own mentality and not care about what their parents are
want to be independent.
thinking. But I think that's also because, like, we'll put it full circle here, where their parents, instilled this kind of mentality into them that they had to follow this and that when they're reaching an age where they have the ability
the expectation, yes,
to make their own decisions, they actually don't want their parents to be a part of it,
Yeah.
because their parents were so a part of their mentality
Yes.
and their upbringing, right? I mean, there's nothing we can do in regards to how they were brought up, but I think that's what happens. And that was the big difference between mom and dad. It was they put so much freedom, but they put so much responsibility on us. But they made us kind of do it at our own pace.
Yes.
Right.
We always had our own pace.
Yeah, and I was surprisingly, like, I don't know how it worked out so well, and I don't know if they.
I swear to
I don't
God,
think they calculated
like.
it. I don't think they. That was their plan too. I think kind of at the end of the day, they're like, oh, I can't believe this.
I was gonna say, I swear to God, I don't think they planned it. I
No.
think they were just trying to be, the best they could be.
Right.
Right. I think, and I don't even say. I want to say I think. I'm pretty sure mom and dad have told me this was, they're proud of us, but they didn't expect us to achieve as much as we have at our age.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that was, they were, like I said, I was a firstborn, so they were very experimental.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if we show her a piano, like, see what she'll do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if we show Julian a soccer ball, see
No,
what
he'll
do.
They didn't. First of all, I'm gonna correct that, because they never showed me a soccer ball. They didn't know the sport. They didn't
Like
think
the
about.
violin.
They wanted me to be in piano, and they wanted me to be in basketball. Well, they showed me the basketball, and I said, "Fuck basketball. Basketball's fucking stupid." Until now, like, I just started liking basketball when I was 18. I hated basketball. I was the shittiest basketball player out there, and I cried every game because we lost basically every game. I was like, no, this isn't my fucking sport. Fuck this.
But that was their thing, was like, let's just see kind of like what they'll do. And then it ended up being 10 times more than what they expected it to be.
Right.
Your soccer, that they didn't.
They didn't expect us to. They didn't expect. Sorry, you didn't play soccer, but they never expected me to go as far as I did.
Because they thought it was just a sport. It's just something to keep him active. We thought Julian had ADHD. Honestly, like, he could not sit still. So mom thought, okay, this is a great sport. He'll get tired, and then he'll nap.
Yeah.
But then you ended up playing for the All-Stars, and you were traveling, and you were asked to play for certain teams, and that was beyond the expectation. But they didn't, and they always say this, we never regretted it, is what they said. We never regretted it, and it was the same with music. They didn't think, they didn't think, they just weren't sure where it was gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
That I was going to be in it for this long, that I was going to end up, as far as I was, or offered a certain thing, or, expectations were out the window at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So when we became young adults, when, we were living alone, going back to that, it was, they've surpassed all of this already.
Yeah.
And they're confident they can do this.
Right.
My expectation is they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. There was no more or less. They can do it. And we
basically
did it.
generalized it.
Yeah.
Instead of it, expect them in this kind of thing and expect them in this kind of thing. It's like, well, if they can do it, then they'll do it.
They'll do it. And individually and or as a team. And that's what we did.
Right.
So, then that leads into the whole now me rebelling again.
Oh, we're going into adulthood, yes.
Right? So 4 years later, you're now 18 and I leave the house. So there is a period, I think, that I've been asked a lot was, why'd you rebel? Did it make you smarter? Did it get you anywhere in life? And I always have an answer for that, But the one question I've been asked was, do you know what happened to your brother when you left? And did you expect that it would fall apart, basically our relationship, because of what I did? And I always say that I don't know, because obviously I wasn't there. And there was a period where we didn't talk,
or if we talked, it was just
very, very small talk.
Yeah.
And for me, that was the one time that I was caught off guard with no expectations. Mm-hmm. I did not know what was happening. I didn't even know how mad you were or how relieved you were or, how angry they were. I was very, very in survival mode, I think, because I'm on my own.
Yeah.
Right? And that's adulthood, like fast forward,
Right.
I forced you to, I think, in some way as an older sibling to grow up.
Yeah.
Right? Because
That's
now
right.
you're on your own. Like literally, I'm not there to even protect you from a lie, basically. And that expectation was probably one of the most disappointing ones because I didn't think it would be that bad in my head. So for you, while I was gone, that's your first year of adulthood. Like
Yeah, that was the thing that
it was your first year, 18. When you turned 18, I was out.
That was the thing that made me the most mad during that situation was because I was put into a situation that I never asked for, and I was made the middleman in conversations. I was asked to probe for things that I didn't want to be a part of. I was put in a very awkward situation all the time, and I was like, and like this is not what I should be going through. This is like I shouldn't be a part of this. I don't like. This is not what I saw coming, and I just don't want it to be like this. And that was basically in my mind. I was like, as much I was mad at you, I was more mad at just what was happening around, and
situation.
like there was so much happening with life, and again I'm turning 18, so yeah, I'm starting to figure out what it is to have my own proper responsibilities for my age, but I'm getting things that that you're not supposed to go through as an 18-year-old. And what I mean by that is, watching, family have their fights and go through all that frustration.
I think in that same
and all that
time
stuff, right?
period, we had 3 passings in the family.
Yeah.
Back to back.
Yeah.
Again, you're just turning 18. It was like a weird introduction into your adulthood.
Yeah, no
where
kidding.
now mine was smooth transition. Yeah. Like we had switched positions in that aspect. But you were getting ready for university.
Yeah.
And a lot of 18, 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds too are, getting ready for university. And I have to say, my first year university, we were alone in that house. I kept saying to myself, I have a 14-year-old who I have to discipline with his PS3, at the same time discipline myself to get my homework and work 3 jobs at the same time. And for you, I don't think you had 3 jobs.
I've never worked 3 jobs in my life. I've never worked more than 1 job in my life. I never want to deal with that shit. I can't. I'd rather put my focus into one thing and one thing only. I had the mentality like dad when it came to work, where it's like find yourself something stable to put your full focus on and never let it go. Don't spread your mind out to multiple things. That's basically the kind of mentality I lived with in that. So I stuck to one job throughout my whole time, and like I fucking hated school. No, okay, let me correct myself. I love school. I hated university because university was that decision where the courses you take, it defines your career now. And let's put into context, you weren't done school yet either.
Nope.
So I didn't know how to how to go through it because you didn't know how to go through it. So like it was kind of fucked up, right?
So we're both all in school still.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm not. A lot of people aren't going to be done in 4 years. That's the norm apparently. They'd be done in 4 years, right? So when I started, you were still in it, or I don't know what was going on at the time, but I had to, as much as you would tell me, take this, this, and this, or you can go here, here, and here. I didn't have a final marker because you didn't have a final marker.
I didn't have a final marker. No?
So it was all kind of up in the air for all of us. So that was something where now there's no guidance. I had to learn it on my own. So I dropped out. After one semester, I'm like, no, this isn't for me. And
To be fair, I did too.
Yeah.
I dropped out of university after 3.5 years.
Yeah, it wasn't. I went back to school though. Let me clarify that, right? But this is, that's that adulthood point in our lives. I think was the most kind of distance that all four of us went through. A lot of emotional distance, just based on the whole scenarios of what was going on in life. I think the most acceleration of my adulthood happened during that time. It's actually where I started developing. I don't know if you. I don't. We've never talked about this actually. Where my sense of what's the word? I guess the ability for me to just thrive on my own. That's when it started. I didn't want to get help anymore.
But wouldn't you rather at that age than at a later age?
Yeah, and I think the great thing was that I wanted that mentality. I found that mentality at that time. When you left, there was a time, like it was a time where I just didn't have anybody to go to. So I'm just like, you know what, then I'm just going to do this on my own. Because if you're not here, and I'm not saying that mom and dad didn't want to help, but I think just because you were gone, I was just like, no, then moving forward, I just want to do everything on my own, put it on my own hands. So that's why I actually dropped out of school, because I was just like, I'm not doing this for me. And I was like, this is not what I want to do. So we dropped out, and then we went to the Philippines, actually. All of us went
I was going to say that was the next, I think that was our, I don't want to say reconciliation.
Rejuvenation, I don't know.
It was like a reset for us.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, reset.
That trip, because, again, I had moved out, you were on your own, it was a big trip. That's 31 days together, 29 days or whatever it was that you had to be together.
Oh my God.
And now here's the other thing. I didn't think that vacation specifically was going to make us as strong as we are now with the situations that have happened in the last 3 years. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying there, is that we went through so much hardship already in that short period of time, right? You turning 18, me, running away, and, all this passing, and it was so dark. And going home, ironically, to mom and dad's home, brought us even closer.
Right.
But it's like it brought us back home too.
Yeah.
Right? As a family, as the four of us.
Right.
And even that trip alone we didn't think it would be that fulfilling. I don't think. We all came back appreciating more. Appreciating where we live, appreciating who we have, appreciating, that we still have each other.
Right. As
the four of us. And yeah, and even then I learned too, university wasn't for me. I dropped out of school to go to the Philippines. I ended up coming back and, going back to college.
Right.
Nothing in nursing, nothing in education, if anything, business admin.
Right.
Right.
And then I think that's where we can tie in the expectations, because, a lot of parents will say, out of high school they expect you to go to university, finish school, find a job, and your life will be set. A lot of parents, I think, they believe, and it's not a wrong thing to believe that, but they believe that school is the only, or the most secure way to have a good future. And I think nowadays, especially what's available out there in the world now, I don't think that's actually the case anymore.
It's not entirely true.
No. Don't get me wrong, having an education is...
Kids go to school.
Yeah.
Go to school, okay?
What I'm trying to get at, because I'm trying to tie this into expectations, is what parents are trying, like, are kind of mislead or like mistaking is education is very important, but it should be education that's tailored towards, what
You
your
want.
child or what you really want.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, a lot of people would say this, comedians have said this, Joe Clay has said this, is like
Yeah.
Filipino parents will say you either be a nurse
A
or
nurse
a
or a
mailman.
mailman.
Right? And you can hear all of us laugh because it's fucking true.
Yes.
Right?
But we didn't have that either, though.
No,
like, we
again,
didn't have that expectation that we had to be a nurse or a mailman.
Yeah, it was a freedom thing that the way they structured it was, Dad will say this no matter what we do, is education is always important,
Yes.
But he'll never say what type of education.
No, just
right?
education.
He's like, just educate yourself.
Yeah.
Find a way to educate yourself. Get that piece of paper, regardless of what kind of piece of paper it was. So, again, that was as small of a detail as it is. It didn't make me feel as restricted, right? Because I think no matter what I chose, I don't think Mom and Dad would have been so judgmental about it. I think, and again, I'll take that back, or like, as in, I'll bring it back to one great thing that Mom and Dad did was they never really judged us or held it against us based on the choices that we made.
No.
Regardless of it being the right choice or the wrong choice, they don't look at the past. They look at what is now, what's up, what's the next step, right?
I think with that said, Mom and Dad's way of implementing expectations was not saying, I expect you to. It was, here's a route, what do you think? Again, going back to what's your opinion? They're softly,
and I think
guiding.
they're shaping us to make our decision and make us actually think about it. Because of like, that's a great point that you made. Because of them structuring their teachings or their advice towards that, it's not so, they weren't just giving us a cookie cutter and saying this is what it's like. They actually want us to think about it and figure it out ourselves, right? But they're pointing us in a certain direction, but they're not just pointing us in a direction to take it. They're making us look at the direction and say, is it right to you, or what do you think? Right?
yeah, what do you think?
Right? They put the freedom in our hands to be like, look this way, but look at it, and see if it fits towards what you want, right? And that was a great thing, because I don't think, a lot of parents will
Give that option?
give that kind of option.
No.
And I mean, we see it, I think, still to this day, right? Because I want to pull it back just a little bit. Do you think that the reason why Mom and Dad have that mentality was based on their upbringing as well? And what I mean by that is not so much their parents, but their environment. And so let me put this in context. Mom came here when she was 10. Dad came here when he was what? 16.
16.
Right? So especially Mom, her preteen years, her high school years, you're basically living it as a regular Canadian compared to being in the Philippines, right?
I can even say Mom and Dad are different because they're the youngest.
Right.
Now.
Right. Okay, that's a good point as well.
Youngest, right?
That's a good point as well.
Mom's the youngest of 11 and Dad's the youngest of 7. By then, their parents had already had all these kids, and it's like...
Yo, Lola fucked. They fucking mass-produced. I just want to say that. Shout out. Because of that, we have so many cousins.
Yes,
and
so many cousins.
So many,
There's
so much offspring. There's so much children. The house parties were crazy.
There was never a dull moment. But no, I don't... they're the youngest. Like,
Yeah, that's a good
They
point.
raised us the way that they saw the Canadian life. Now, what I mean by that was... they got to be here for a Canadian... And I say Canadian because we're Canadian. A Canadian high school. Where there weren't many Filipinos.
Right.
Number one. They are the youngest,
Right.
so their parents are a lot older. So
Yeah.
they were raised by their siblings, kind of like you and I were, I was with you and they were hung out with their siblings. So I think what they did was, yes, they took some of their upbringing in quotations and I don't even say implemented, but kind of like painted us a certain picture kind of thing. Because they can actually say, well, I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
At a tougher time,
You know what?
A tougher time.
I wanna kind of add to that because a lot of parents will teach you something, but they'll never give you a reason.
No backup, nothing.
Right? They'll just say because.
Yeah,
or
because I said so.
Because I said so. But when our parents would actually say, "Dude, it should be like this," or "Think about it like this," because we've actually gone
There was an
through
example.
it, right? That meant a lot, and it means a lot more when we look back at it because we didn't understand it as kids,
Yes.
but as adults, like I said, our parents involved us in a lot of things. So when they educate us and they explain more about their lives and what they went through, they're actually, again, like I said, it's something that they've actually encountered. So it makes it
More valid.
it makes more valid, right? And you'll look back and be like, well, okay, they actually.
It makes sense.
It makes sense, right? Instead of it just being like, well, just say do this or it's because of this because I said so. It's like,
And
okay.
because they grew up here too, they knew times were changing. They knew the culture was different. They knew what, even down to like the type of dangers there were compared to back home. They knew that. So, you can't.
Why do you think that parents nowadays, or even other parents, are different than our parents?
I think parents now are.
Before now, let's say because parents now are actually maybe our kind of our cousins or something. So let's take it one step before, as in why were the parents just different than ours? Because you can see it, we can see it. Because
Yeah.
you and I will be like, yo, they're definitely like when we see something different, we'll look at each other and be like, yo, they're definitely raised so different than us, right?
Yeah, no,
Right.
absolutely.
So like, what do you think it is that's different from their parents to ours?
It's all down to experience. Like, everyone has a different story, okay?
Right.
Everyone has a different background. Everyone has a different household. And I think that the reason why our parents differ from other friends' parents is because our age gap is a lot,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
They,
point.
mom had me at a very young age, like I said.
Yeah.
She had you at just before 30.
Yeah, good point.
So, she can relate. Dad, man of few words. He's very observant. And so everything Dad's ever observed and learned in his own time, he was able to co-parent with Mom and Dad, that it was just different. I don't know. It's like hard to explain because they just
Dad's an anomaly.
like they didn't believe in suffocation. They didn't believe in suffocating their kids, right? And they were very good at defining the line between a parent and a friend. And in that, they came up with their parenting strategies.
Right.
I think I don't want to bash parents too, but you need to understand your child's needs and their growth journey.
Yeah, and that's a communication thing. I see it.
It is a communication. And mom and dad every day. How was your day? What did you do today?
Yeah, that's a small thing that I don't understand.
Good morning, good night.
If you're like younger parents or new parents, you'll talk to your kid.
Please talk to your kid. We didn't have electronics back then either.
No.
Like, that wasn't even an option. Are you kidding me? It was, what are you reading today? Let's read together. Or what are you watching? Let's watch together. And we traveled a lot. You have to communicate when you travel.
Yeah.
Right? And so our parents knew how to communicate, how to adapt to our world because it was a lot different than theirs. They knew what was trending. They knew what was changing. They changed with it.
And they embraced it too. And I think
embraced it 100%.
I think that's one big thing that kind of separates our parents is they're a little bit more embracing with changing cultures and changing, social norms and everything like that. It made it easier for us to, relate to them and communicate with them in those regards. So yeah, I think that was a really good point there. So, and
that's what I think makes them a little bit different.
And this is I can hit a gnarly segue into this because your next point is expectation as a partner.
Yes.
Mom and Dad had a very, very, very powerful, kind of like a Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith. I'm not gonna say they're still more traditional than them.
Yes.
As Mom and Dad are more traditional than the Smiths, but their expectation as a partner for each other was very well balanced.
Yes.
And this is what I also wanted to point out was Mom and Dad were very good at teaching us by example rather than by voice. So one thing that I grasped very, very powerfully from Mom and Dad was work ethic.
Yeah.
Because, some parents will just say, you gotta, do this, and this, but they won't show it.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad, at least to me, they wouldn't say it so much because they would just do it already themselves.
Mm-hmm. And we saw that.
And we saw that, right? So it wasn't something vocally where I can, question them because they're physically showing us.
Yeah.
And all they have to say is, well, we're doing it right now. So there's no excuse for you to not be able to do it, right?
Exactly.
School was a big thing. Work was a big thing, right? Especially Dad when it came to work and school. Mom and Dad had different educations as well. As in, Mom went to university, Dad went to college for trades. I'm not saying one's better than the other. It's just different, industries. So Dad was very hands-on with his work. Mom was very book-orientated with her, like her mentality. You can tell it. You can tell. Mom likes to know the facts. Dad likes to know. Not saying Dad doesn't like to know the facts, but he wants to figure it out. He wants to piece it, and he wants to touch it. Dad is very tangible. Mom is very legible. I guess that kind of sense.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm trying to get at. Again, it was all by expectation. Oh, shoot, it was all by practice. They showed us. They were the examples. I think that's also what they expected as each other. Being a role model as parents, as partners. Husband and wife, right? Yeah. It made it easier for us to value and respect the relationship because we see it in Mom and Dad. They communicate with each other. Even when they get mad, when they fight with each other.
It's a discussion. It's
never
a yelling match.
Yeah, and that was like when I knew Mom and Dad fought each other. It was nothing. It was nothing that really scared me because I knew that they were mad at each other. I knew they were fighting.
Yelling.
But I knew it wasn't so bad where I was questioning if they're. As a kid, you're like, oh my god, are they gonna divorce? Or are they gonna break up? Right? But I just knew, I never had that sense. I'm just like, oh, they're fighting. No. Right?
It was always a discussion. It was adult to adult. It's a partner to partner. Yeah. We're going to figure this out together. And that, that brings up the whole expectation of how we see ourselves as partners in the future at that age. Right. And now, we're both in relationships.
Yeah. See that gangsters. You see
nice. I see that. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. But
Mom and Dad,
I mean, Mom and Dad kind of put that, they set the example and they set the environment very well for us to embrace it and look at it properly because if they value when we see them valuing their relationship, they care about each other's opinions. They never cared about economic standpoint of whose job is better, who's making more money. They always looked at it as like whatever it is that we have, it's shared equally. I want I want to hear your opinion on this choice. I want to hear your opinion on that choice. What do you want to do? What do you think of this? That's what we hear a lot. And it made us, take it the same way as that's how we should be communicating with our partners, right? Yep. Communication is a huge thing. I think even Jade would agree to that.
It's number one.
So.
It's the number one thing. my view on it was if I could have even just a piece of what they have, because they together they are a power couple. I think, like, and of course they're my parents, so of course I'm gonna say that, but no, it's
super biased.
but it's because they didn't start from a lot either.
Yeah.
Right? They built an empire. That's their empire, and they did it together. So from my point of view was that's what I want. Right? I want to build something with someone the way that they did. So you can look back and see the growth between the two of you. I mean, you've been with Jade longer.
9 years, baby.
And and even as an older sister, watching you and Jade be together as long as you have also influenced me, because and this isn't a secret. I don't believe in marriage. Man, even Jade has said it. Like, I don't believe it. I'm not the marriage type.
Yeah.
But I am a partnership type.
Yes.
And Mom and Dad, you and Jade, you four show me what a partnership is. And one of the things I always suggest, traits, I suggest to individuals that are looking, wanting, and come out of something broken is be friends first. Mom and Dad were friends first. They didn't see each other down the hall and be like, I'm going to marry you. Like, they were friends, and then they developed it. You and Jade were friends, and you develop it. And, you set an expectation at the very beginning.
Right.
You let it grow. And then the expectation goes out the window. Because you're growing already. Your train is moving. Your empire is growing. You're going to get there. And Mom and Dad were very good at showing that. And now you took that in, and you and Jade are doing it.
Yeah, and that's one thing as well, as Mom and Dad, they acknowledge each other very well too. Because Mom and Dad would always say, like, they're not who they are without the other.
Yes.
Right? And I can say the same thing with Jade. I don't think I'd be the person I am without Jade, at least to keep me in line. I think that's one of the smallest but yet the biggest things that I don't even think Jade realizes sometimes is, with her mentality, she kind of keeps me from going.
She balances you.
Yeah, she keeps me from going.
And that's what you should
wild, so.
want, I think, or even just appreciate.
Yeah, and material things are never, and I think a big thing is trust. That's a huge thing. Mom and Dad always trusted each other.
Yes.
And I think they instilled that. It's like, you gotta trust each other, and you gotta trust. They did it everywhere from their relationship to saying it, instilling it with your siblings, saying you gotta trust your siblings, you gotta trust who you're marrying or who you're sharing your life with. That's a big thing, and communicate. And I think that's based on your point there, is expectation as a partner. That's what I expect or that's what you should expect, is communication and trust. It's easier said than done, but the biggest thing, like what you said, is building that foundation, because you grow it together. You start at ground zero, right? So that you can, like, everything is new to you guys. You guys don't put each other on some sort of pedestal or expect that kind of like level where you should be thinking like this or being like this, but you guys take it step by step together, and that's kind of what I expect, right? But
I know one of the things, now that you have been together for that long, or I've been with Philip for, this long, is, okay, now the expectation is, when are you going to get married?
Right.
When are you going to have kids?
Right.
Another good thing was we don't have that pressure.
Yeah.
We never had that pressure, and we still don't. When are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids? I think even individually, and especially myself, I'm very opinionated about that topic, is I don't need to be pressured because everyone else did it at a young age. I know Mom and Dad did, but they knew they were ready. They knew that this is what was meant to happen, right? But they don't say that because they did that at that age. You need to do it now because you've been dating together for X amount of years. I need to do that because I'm at this certain age. There's no pressure. Everyone else has pressured, from every corner of this world because you've been together for that long and I'm at a certain age. But we don't get that from mom and dad. No. And I know certain individuals in my close circle have that pressure where you're almost 25, you're almost 30.
Yeah.
Why aren't you married and why don't you have kids?
Or why don't you have your career set?
Or why don't you have your career set?
Right.
Why are you not done school? Why are you, all these why? And I think that causes a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. And depression in young adults and adults going into their 30s, 40s.
Right.
If they're not hitting these targets. And that's one of the challenges of being an adult is you have this feeling that you have to be, you need to be in order to be somebody. And I think a lot of people need to know is that you don't have to. This is your life.
Right.
You set the bar. You set the pace. Right. If you're not ready, if you want to date for 20 years, then date for 20 years. Right. There's nothing wrong. You two trust each other already. You two built something already. And it works. It's not broken. And if you think you love somebody in 2 days and you want to get married next week, then you know.
Right.
Just be advised, but you know.
So what I'm hearing then is, you're gonna like this. So what I'm hearing is your expectations shouldn't be shaped by other people. It should be shaped by yourself. Meaning your next point for self-expectation.
Self-expectation.
Right?
Yes.
So, let's dive into that last. I think that's the last point, right?
One of the last ones, yeah.
Yeah, so self-expectation. Like I said, I don't think anyone should be structuring those expectations for you to, for you to look at it. I think it's your own decisions, right? Yep. So
you know yourself better than anyone else.
Right.
Right? And you've worked hard, whoever you are, you've worked hard already up until this point. I always say I would rather stand alone against the crowd. It's not that I want to be with my friends. It's not that I don't want to be popular. I don't want to be known. Everyone has a different want. And everyone has a different drive out of that want. Right? But have expectations. I personally, every morning, I have an expectation how my day is going to be. And I'm an OCD person, right? I want everything from plan A to Z to work.
Yeah.
And I will plan that.
Right.
Right? Everything from A to Z. Yeah. But life happens. And you need to be able to adjust, adapt. Everything that moms and dads taught us is learn, it's changing. The world is changing, but so will time.
Right. And I'm gonna add to this is your self expectations, expectations you have on yourself, you should value it as as much as anything else, because what I'm trying to get at is a lot of people will compare their expectations to others. So they'll look at their lives and say, well, is it like theirs? Or, they use other people as, markers in their life. It's like, well, they're doing it at this age and everything like that. So like you were saying, expectations on yourself, it shouldn't be like anybody else's. It should be yourself.
Right.
And it, you have to be, whatever it is that you're expecting of yourself, it doesn't matter where anybody else is. You have to be happy with it, right? Because you may expect yourself to be, having kids before 30. Other people will have it after 30, but you shouldn't be comparing it. Everything that you expect of yourself, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks about it, right?
I think media has a lot to do with it.
Damn right.
Social media. Again, we didn't have that growing up, so a lot of it was ourselves, digging within our internal being and who do we want to be. Yeah. Now, media is it's so big. And I mean by that
it's influential in our daily lives.
That person looks like that on Instagram, I gotta look like that. That person, made it this far at this age, I gotta,
Yeah, and because
you don't have
social
to be
media,
them.
social media will you use it you use it as a platform to point out your expectations and your achievements, right? And it makes others, self-reflect, and you see where they're going with their lives and saying, well, this person's doing at this point, why am I not there? And that's where I'm getting at, where, expectations you have of yourself, it doesn't matter where everybody else is. You have to be satisfied with where you are.
Yeah.
And whatever it is that you expect of yourself, do it to the fullest. And at the end of the day, as soon as you achieve it, you'll be happy with it, right? It doesn't matter when, right? Social media is a revolving and reoccurring point in my podcast.
I noticed,
because
but
it has so much to
big.
do with our lives,
Yes.
right? So,
It's the first thing you see and the last thing you see sometimes.
I know it's stupid.
Before-
First thing I do is check Instagram, see what someone posted at 3 a.m. Oh my god!
But young kids are looking at it now and expecting to be what they see on a media,
That's right.
and you don't need to be them. It can be a good a good motivation,
Right.
right? An inspiration to
Right.
be something or someone later on. But at the end of the day, it's your personality, it's your pace, your goals. Who do you want to be? Who are you going to be proud of? And I always say, be better than who you were 5 minutes ago. If you didn't say hi to that person before, say hi to the next person. Smile to the next person. Because you made their day. Now that makes your day. And now going forward 5 minutes, it's going to be better than the last 5 minutes. Right?
Do you think social media also has a lot to do with how kids are being parented?
Not media, just electronics.
Electronics.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, not
point.
media, electronics. I think that back then, like I said, with our parents is, yes, they were young, but there was no cell phones. There was no computers. A lot of it was hands-on parenting. Even with mom and dad taking care of Lola and Lola, it was hands-on. If you were having a fit, if I was having a fit, it wasn't here's an iPod or an iPhone.
I was gonna actually point. I was like, what do you think about that kind of?
Personally, it shouldn't be a babysitter. I think the only way you're going to know your kid is if you talk to your kid.
Right.
Because the phone does not care how your kid feels. The phone doesn't know what emotions your kids are feeling, and there's a lot of cyberbullying. There's a lot of information on the internet that isn't true, and your children are believing it, but what are you doing as a parent?
Right.
That is your job.
Yeah.
Right?
So do you know about those the kind of internet influences out there, kids from YouTube? Have you heard about any of those things? Anybody like Jake Paul, Logan Paul, any of those people?
Sorry.
So, I don't know them that much either. I only know it because of YouTube and everything like that. And I follow Instagram and social media as much as the next person. But a lot of kids nowadays are, very influenced by these YouTube
Sensation.
yeah, YouTube influencers and everything like that. Some of them are, a lot of them are younger than me actually, right? And kids are following them, and a lot of other older YouTube influencers would even talk about them and say, a lot of it has to do with just how exposed they were at such a young age that they didn't know how to properly deal with it. So nowadays they look like crazy sociopaths, and they're influencing the younger generation, right? And because parents are, giving them that kind of freedom to look at it and be exposed to that, they're like you said, they're kind of taking over as babysitters, and they're being influenced by those rather than by their parents.
There are some good influences, like a lot of it. Just an example off the top of my head is, children, kids, young adults who are not in their own skin. There are people out there who are very open about it on medias in a positive way. That if I can come out as me, so can you.
Right.
That's fine. You know what I mean? And I mean by that's fine is the message being sent across to whoever's reading and or seeing in the other side of it is it's okay. There is a positive to this. We can fight, we can win, it's okay to be you. And then there's the dark side of it, right? But what I mean as a parent should be involved, you know your kid better.
You should know your kid
You
better.
should know your kid better than the person talking on that screen right now to them.
Yeah.
Right? So if your kid is having an issue, yeah, it's a great message that they're listening to. But what's your message?
Yeah.
Do I support you?
Right.
Should we discuss this? Where do you need help? Or where do you need me to bring you up and encourage you? And there should be a balance between being that role model and allowing them freedom to be on the internet and seeing all these
Yeah,
things
and
too.
that's
50-50 almost.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Like
that's where like parents have to have that kind of balance where they have the ability to have their kid come up to them and not think that what they're thinking is wrong.
Yeah.
Or going to be judged.
Yeah. Again, we never had that. So
it's a weird balance because mom and dad gave us the freedom, but they gave us freedom with guiders. Like,
right.
That's what I'm like. It's such a weird thing to explain. Because they gave us freedom, but at the same time, it's like, they still didn't just be like, just do whatever you want. They still kind of
guided us.
Yeah, like it's a weird dynamic because it almost sounds like we're contradicting ourselves, saying that parents just let us, they gave us so much freedom. It's not so much that they gave us freedom, but they gave us freedom to think about things and not feel like it's going to be judged, right? Because of the fact that they're letting us think the way we want to think, and parents nowadays they either use certain tools to keep their kid quiet and
entertain
replace them,
yeah.
right? Where they don't talk to their kids, and it's so weird to me. Or when they talk to their kids, it's like they don't know their kids. I don't know. It's so weird to like explain, and I don't understand it.
I think mom says it the best is you don't know until you have kids yourself.
Right.
And by the time that we do, technology will be in a totally different level. Education would be in a totally different level than when we were in school.
Right.
The world will be in a different place at that time.
Right.
I think that's the unknown for what is going to happen.
Right.
My expectation for myself in that case is to mix what we know now and what mom and dad have done for us. And it's that balance of, yes, you can use your technology to, see the world almost, but I'm still here, right? Come to me, talk to me.
Right.
I'm here to support you. I'm here to listen to you. And
yeah, I mean, we were in the perfect place for the transition of technology because we were there at the start of social media and technology being a social like an expansion of social interaction. We were there for all that. We were there for MSN, we were there for Facebook, Skype. We were there for all of that, right? And we're here now to experience whatever's next, right?
Right.
Nowadays kids, that's their first option, like, is to text. That's their first option to kind of connect with someone, whereas with us we had to either go to the person's house or call them
on a landline.
Yeah, we were on a landline, right?
On a landline.
Kids don't even know what the hell a landline is. They don't even know that phones used to have a cord on them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Have you ever watched the movie Neighbors 2?
Yes.
Right, where the girl tried to take the phone,
Yeah.
and then she fucking gets pulled back, and she's like, "What is this?" And she's like, "It's a landline, you idiot!" Like, you know what I mean? Right? Like,
some things I
Yeah,
shake my head, but
yeah, we were put in that kind of place.
we were in the transition period. And it's going to be another transition too. I think it's then our responsibility to merge the two worlds. Because we were there for the beginning, we're in it now. We're going to go into another transition, and it's our job to educate, in a positive way, because we I want to say we were privileged to see all these transitions.
Yeah,
happen.
let's get this straight. We weren't privileged just on like a financial aspect. We were privileged. We were privileged in a mental aspect, as in we had a freedom of speech. We had a freedom of mindset and ideas, where we can express ourselves without being scolded or anything like that, right? And I think that's something we should expect ourselves to be able to do, because you shouldn't ever be afraid of your mentality or what you're thinking and being afraid to express it, whatever, regardless of how it is or whatever it is that you want to express. We as our generation or in our culture is, we always seem to be very scared to make decisions or make choices or say something because we're scared of what our parents would think or what other people would think, right? Because we're I think we're pretty much hitting all the topics we want to do, but basically we're getting into kind of like words of wisdom here. But your mind, whoever you are, you're a very smart person. You should think of yourself that whatever it is that you have to offer is valuable. Our parents, brought us up in a sense where they made us value, like, they gave us a sense of value for what we brought to the table, regardless of whatever it was, right? So I think whatever it is, whoever's listening, that whatever it is that you can bring to the table or whatever it is that you're thinking, like, expect that it's valuable, right? And I think you should have that kind of mindset when you have your own kids as well. Never put that kind of expectations on your kids in that kind of sense where you put that pressure. Let them. And again, I can't say this. I'm being very biased because I'm not a parent yet. But I mean, moving into a parenthood, I think that's how I'm going to tackle it.
Yeah.
Like, I want my child to have that kind of freedom of a mindset. I want them to think that way. I want them to not be so cautious of what they're thinking. I want them to come up to me and be like, "What do you think of this?"
Ask your opinion.
Right. I want to hear their opinions. Yeah. Right. I don't want them to be afraid of voicing their opinions to me, whether good or bad, because again, like at the end of the day, they're your parents, right? They're gonna love you no matter what you do, right? I
don't think you should abuse if you have the freedom. I mean, but one of the best advice that I still take to with me every day is, and it's it's one of those words of wisdom, right? No matter who you are, whatever you want to be, and you should. Mom always used to say to us, "You don't have to be the best, just do your best." Because you are who you are. You know your truth. You know your value. You know who you want to be. You know who you were before, and as long as it's true and it's honest, and everything is from a good place, that's the best you can be. Right. You should not be held down by these imaginary fumes that linger around your head. You can achieve anything really, as long as you go for it, right? And that's one of those things that Mom always said. You don't have to be the best, just do your best.
You'll get something good out of it.
And you'll get something very good out of it, right? Because you just did your best.
Yeah. So good. Yeah, anything else that you wanted to bring up here on the podcast? You did very well for your first podcast.
Thanks. I was kind of nervous, but I think it's all right.
You have to admit that being able to speak your mind, it feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I love doing these things.
Yeah, it is. It's nice. It's nice.
Because when you think about it, it's just you and me talking, and then we're just speaking our mind to a microphone, but everyone else can now hear it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's cool, right?
And I was nervous, but I think it's pretty cool.
I don't know why you should ever be nervous. There's no one else here except for like you and me.
It's because it's
because you know that at the end of the day people are going to be listening to your mentality and your thoughts.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
Don't ever think and worry about what other people's are thinking about you. That's my West End opinion.
Noted.
Anything else that you want to say? No.
No, I think we're good.
Well, I want to thank you again for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you too.
Actually, I mean, this was your idea to do this podcast, so I really want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to, get your, pick your brain, right? This was a different one out of a lot of the ones that I've done. A lot of it was actually just, looking back at life, so that was really nice.
Therapeutic.
Yeah. I don't talk about, I mean, actually, I think the most I talk about my life is on on these podcasts. Like, I don't really talk about these stories with friends in this kind of level, so it's nice, right? It's nice to hit this kind of like emotional and this kind of depth in conversation.
It's very private,
but at the same time public.
But now
you know what
public.
I mean? That's the thing I like about doing
There's a whole
these podcasts.
understanding for it now.
Yeah.
Why our dynamic is the way that it is. Why we're always with our parents. Why we don't mind them there.
Right.
How we approach our partners.
Right.
How we live together. How we live with other people. And even at work, like, there is a whole foundation back there that now a lot of people.
A lot of the skills
know.
are transferable to that too. Right?
Yeah. So there's a whole understanding now that maybe not everyone knew about, and we'll hopefully see in a different light.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah. Thank you again for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you too.
Am I gonna hopefully hear from you again sometime in the future with a podcast?
Quite possibly.
Damn right. I mean, you're only a floor beneath me, so.
It's right there.
Yeah.
Just let me know.
I'll just be like, yo, I haven't posted a podcast in like 3 weeks. Let's do something.
Okay. I got topics.
Cool. And I'll be more than willing to, have it voiced on here.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, thank you again so much. Thank you to all who listen in and view the West End opinions. Very, very much appreciated. Love the support. But if there's anything else or anything that you want myself or Melanie to talk about, give us a shout. I put it on my Instagram, put on my Facebook, Julian Hugh, Instagram, jhugh, JAYHVGH, 2 underscores, or on Twitter, Hugh_boss. This is the first time I'm actually plugging in my social media apps. But yeah, let me know. I don't know if you want to plug in your stuff, but whatever. No worries. If anything, contact me. But thank you again, and thank you to everyone that has that listened in. We hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll catch you later. Bye.
Bye.